What if the most powerful man in Korea rejected every perfect woman in the room for a waitress with stained hands? Jin Taesun didn't explain himself. He just walked, past the actresses, past the heiresses, straight to the back of the kitchen line. 5 years ago, she saved a dying stranger and asked for nothing. Tonight, he was going to give her everything. An empire, a name, and a secret that was about to burn someone else's world down. Stay with me till the end. Because the secret buried in that clay jar is going to change everything you think this story is about. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Rain hit the dirt road like it was angry at it. Tiana Caldwell pulled her jacket tighter and kept walking. Her shift at the eatery had run late again. Old Mrs. Boateng's knees were bad, and someone had to close up. Tiana didn't mind. She never minded. That was just who she was. She almost missed him. A shape in the mud, half in the ditch, not moving. She thought it was trash at first. Then the shape breathed. She crouched down, careful. Hey, can you hear me? Nothing. Just blood, mixing with rainwater running toward the road. She looked left. No cars. No one. Tiana's hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. Okay, I got you. She didn't know his name. She didn't know what he'd done, who he'd made angry, whether he deserved this or ran from it. None of that mattered right now. What mattered was he was breathing, and breathing people didn't get left in ditches. She wrapped her arms under his and pulled. He was heavier than he looked, dead weight soaked through with rain. Her knees buckled once, twice. She kept pulling. By the time she got him onto the little wooden cart she used for hauling clay, her arms had gone numb. You better not die on me, she muttered, pushing the cart toward home. I did not sign up for this. The old workshop smelled like wood smoke and wet clay. Tiana laid him on her only bed and got to work, cleaning the gash along his ribs, wrapping what she could, pressing a cloth to the wound at his shoulder that wouldn't stop weeping blood. Her neighbor, Ms. Laurentia, appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, face tight with worry that looked like anger. Tiana, you don't know this man. I know he's hurt. That's not the same thing as knowing him. Laurentia's eyes dropped to the blood on the floor. Men like this, the ones who show up broken and silent, trouble wears a face just like anybody else. Tiana didn't look up from her work. If he's trouble, God can judge him after he lives. Laurentia sighed the sigh of a woman who'd lost this argument before it started. She left a pot of water by the door and didn't say anything else. That night, Tiana sat by the stranger's side, changing the cloth on his shoulder, listening to his breath rattle in and out. Her own dinner sat untouched. She told herself she wasn't hungry. That wasn't really true. Around midnight, his eyes moved beneath his lids. His lips parted like he was trying to speak, but no sound came. Shh, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Not yet. You're not ready yet. She didn't know his name. She didn't know that 3 men in black SUVs were already fanning out across 3 villages with his photograph, that a business card with a gold embossed logo was sitting in a drawer somewhere in Seoul with his blood type circled on the back, that somewhere in a high-rise office, a man was already telling someone to make sure this particular problem never woke up. All she knew was a stranger was dying in her bed, and she wasn't going to let that happen, not on her watch. Not while she still had 2 working hands and a roof, however small, over both their heads. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing his blood into the dirt, erasing any trace that he had ever been on that road at all. 3 days passed before he opened his eyes. Tiana was in the back of the eatery when it happened, stirring a pot of her grandmother's gochujang back to the bed. She heard the sheets shift and turned around fast. He was staring at the ceiling like he didn't recognize it, like he didn't recognize anything. You're awake, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. He tried to sit up. His arms gave out halfway, where his voice cracked dry as old wood. Where am I? My kitchen. Well, the back room of it. You've been out 3 days. He looked at his own hands like he was checking they still belonged to him. I can't remember how I got here. You were on the road, half dead. She poured water into a cup and held it to his lips. I found you. That's really all I know. He drank like a man who'd forgotten what water tasted like. When he finished, he tried to stand, and his legs folded under him like paper. Tiana caught him before his head hit the floor. He was heavier than he looked, all lean muscle even now, weeks off whatever life he'd had before this one. You are not strong enough for that, she said, easing him back down. He looked at her hands, the ones holding him up, stained deep red-brown from years of turning chili paste in her grandmother's ancient clay jars. Hands that had hauled him through mud and stitched his skin with a sewing needle because there was no doctor for 30 miles. What do I owe you? He asked. It came out sharp, businesslike, like the question was a reflex he couldn't shut off. Tiana almost laughed. You don't owe me anything. Everyone owes someone something. Not this time. She straightened up, wiping her hands on a cloth. You owe God another day of life. That's between you and him, not me. Something in his face shifted. Confusion, maybe. Or the first crack in something he'd built a long time ago and never questioned. Outside, a black SUV rolled slow through the village dirt road, engine too clean and too quiet for a place like this. The driver leaned out the window, holding up a photograph to anyone who'd look. Have you seen this man? One by one, villagers shook their heads. Nobody recognized the picture. A clean-shaven man in an expensive suit, hair combed, eyes sharp and unafraid. The man breathing in Tiana's back room had a swollen face, a week of beard, and stitches holding his cheek together. Even he wouldn't have known himself in that photograph. Back inside, Tiana ladled a bowl of soup and set it beside him. You never told me your name, she said. He hesitated, just a second too long. He stopped, started again. I don't know if I remember it right now. It wasn't quite a lie. It also wasn't the truth. Tiana studied him a moment, then let it go, nodding toward the bowl. That's all right. You don't have to be anybody in here. Just eat. Just heal. He watched her ladle out a second bowl for herself, smaller than his. And for the first time in longer than he could name, he didn't feel like running. By the second week, Jin Taesun could stand without shaking. By the third, he'd started sweeping the floors when Tiana wasn't looking, hauling water from the well, chopping vegetables with hands that had clearly never chopped anything in his life. You're doing it wrong, Tiana said one morning, watching him butcher an onion into uneven chunks. I'm doing it my way. Your way is wrong. She took the knife from him, gentle but firm, and showed him again. Small pieces, even pieces. Otherwise, it doesn't cook right. He watched her hands move, quick, sure, unthinking. The hands of someone who'd done this 10,000 times and would do it 10,000 more, and never once complain about it. How do you know all this? He asked. The soup, the jars, all of it. My grandmother. Tiana didn't look up from the cutting board. She built this place with her own hands, came here from a long way off, married into a family with nothing, and made something out of clay and pepper and time. She nodded toward the wall of dark jars lining the back room, some of them taller than she was, sealed with cloth and string, fermenting quietly in the dark. Those jars are older than my mother, older than this whole village, some of them. He studied the jars like he was seeing them for the first time. What's in them? Life, she said simply. Gochujang doesn't rush. You feed it, you wait, you trust it'll become what it's supposed to become. Rush it, and it turns to nothing. Wait for it, and it becomes something that outlives you. He said nothing for a long moment. Somewhere in his chest, something old and calcified shifted half an inch. I built a company by controlling everything, he said quietly. Every decision, every hour, nothing was allowed to sit and wait. Tiana glanced at him. And how'd that work out for you? He almost laughed. Almost. Someone tried to have me killed. So, not great. That night, a storm rolled in fast off the hills, the kind that turned the dirt road to soup and rattled every loose board in the village. Taesun couldn't sleep. He stepped out onto the small porch, watching lightning flicker over the tree line. Tiana was already out there, wrapped in a shawl, sitting on the step like the storm didn't concern her at all. You should be resting, she said, not turning around. Can't. He sat beside her, careful of the distance between them. Have you ever lied to someone you cared about? She was quiet a moment. What happened? She glanced at him sideways. Sometimes that's the only kind of lie worth telling. So did I, he said. Lie to protect someone. Who? He hesitated, the truth rising up his throat and stalling there right behind his teeth. Myself, Mo smiled. Then maybe one day you'll tell yourself the truth. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. He opened his mouth, a gunshot cracked somewhere across the valley, sharp and wrong against the sound of the rain. Both of them went still. Dogs began barking. A light flicked on in a house down the road, then another. Tiana's hand found his wrist in the dark, gripping hard. That wasn't a hunter, she whispered. Taesun's blood went cold. He knew that sound. He'd heard it before, the night he almost died. They weren't just looking anymore. They'd found him. The gunshot still hung in the air when Tiana moved. Inside, now. She was already on her feet, pulling him up by the wrist. What? No time. Move. She blew out the lantern in one breath, plunging the back room into darkness lit only by lightning flashes through the window. Taesun stumbled after her, past the wall of gochujang jars, toward the back of the kitchen where the shelves met the wall. He hadn't noticed it before. A seam in the wood, nearly invisible unless you knew to look. Tiana pressed her palm flat against it, and a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow crawl space behind the shelving. My grandmother built this during the war, she whispered. Never thought I'd need it. What about you? He asked, already being pushed toward the gap. If someone's looking for you, they can't know you're here. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. Stay. Don't move. Don't breathe loud. Tiana, she shut the door. Darkness swallowed him whole. He pressed his back against cold earth, heart slamming against his ribs, and for the first time since he'd woken in her bed 3 weeks ago, he felt something he hadn't let himself feel in years. Fear, not for himself. For her. Outside, 3 men in dark jackets pushed through the front door without knocking. Their leader smiled the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Evening, he said. We're looking for someone, a dangerous man. We have reason to believe he passed through here. Tiana crossed her arms, planced herself in front of the shelves. The only dangerous thing in this kitchen is the chili paste. The men fanned out anyway, kicking over baskets, checking under tables, running flashlights along the walls. One of them stopped near the shelving, close enough that Taesun could hear his boots through the wood. What's back there? My grandmother's jars, fermenting. You open that door, you ruin 3 years of work, and you'll be the one explaining that to me. The man hesitated, hand halfway to the shelf. His leader glanced around the modest kitchen, cracked tile, a single bulb, nothing that looked like it belonged to a syndicate heir. There's nothing here, he said. Let's go. As they turned to leave, the leader looked back at Tiana one last time, sliding a card onto the counter. If you see anything, anyone, call this number. The door shut behind them. Tiana didn't move for a full minute, listening to the SUV engine fade down the road. Only then did she open the hidden door. Taesun stumbled out, pale, breathing hard. You could have been killed. Off the counter, turning it over in her fingers. Her face changed. What is it? She held it up. Embossed gold lettering caught the last of the lantern light. Cole Syndicate Holdings. His stomach dropped. You know this name? She asked quietly. He stared at the card like it might bite him. His own family's crest. His own men, which meant the people hunting him weren't outsiders. They were his. Taesun, her voice was careful now. That's not your name I've been hearing, is it? He looked up at her. Really looked, for the first time since he'd woken in her bed a stranger. No, he said quietly. It isn't. Dawn came gray and quiet. The storm burned itself out somewhere over the hills. Tiana sat across from him at the small wooden table, the business card still between them like a live wire neither of them wanted to touch. Say it, she said, your real name. He turned the empty cup in his hands once, twice. Jin Taesun. The name didn't mean anything to her, not at first. Then she watched his face, the way he braced himself for it, the way his shoulders pulled in like a man expecting to be hit. Should I know that name? You will, everyone in Korea knows it. He set the cup down. My family runs one of the largest syndicates in Seoul, shipping, real estate, half of it legal, half of it not. Tiana didn't flinch. She'd expected worse somehow, a murderer, a thief. Instead, she just got a very tired, very frightened man in someone else's clothes. And the men who tried to kill you? Also mine. His jaw tightened. Which means whoever did it knew exactly where I'd be, exactly when, exactly how to make it look like an accident. He looked up at her. Someone inside my own family wants me dead. Your uncle, she said, before she could stop herself. He stared at her. How did you? I didn't, I guessed. She wrapped her hands around her own cup, steadying them. It's always the uncle. Despite everything, something close to a laugh escaped him. It surprised them both. The laugh didn't last. His face went serious again, and this time, when he looked at her, it wasn't confusion in his eyes. It was calculation, the mind of a businessman finally waking back up after weeks of silence. I need to go back, he said, to Seoul. If my uncle believes I'm dead, he's already moving, restructuring, buying loyalty. Every day I stay here, he gets stronger, and I lose ground I can't get back. He stood, testing his legs, steadier now, weeks of Tiana's soup and rest finally paying off. I have to go before he finishes what he started. Tiana studied him for a long moment. Then go. It came out flatter than she meant it to. He noticed. He stopped, started again quieter. You saved my life. I don't even know how to begin to. You don't owe me a speech. She stood too, gathering the cups, kneading her hands busy. You owe yourself the truth about who tried to kill you. Go find it. He caught her wrist, gentle, before she could turn away. Tiana, how to repay this, he said, but I make you one promise. Wherever I go, whatever happens, if you ever need me, I will come, no matter what it costs me. Her eyes searched his face, looking for the lie in it. She didn't find one. That scared her more than if she had. I never helped you for a promise, she said softly. I know. His grip on her wrist loosened, but he didn't let go completely. That's exactly why I'm making it. Outside, an old pickup idled at the edge of the village, engine coughing in the cold morning air. The driver, an old man with a permanently bent back, tipped his cap toward the house. Taesun released her hand. He picked up the small bag he'd packed the night before. the only things that were truly his now. The clothes on his back and a gold signet ring he'd found buried in the ashes after the fire, when he still hadn't shown her. 5 years, he said, half to himself, half to her. Give me 5 years to fix what's broken, then I'm coming back for you. Tiana didn't answer right away. She just watched him walk toward the truck. Already half afraid she'd never see him again, Seoul didn't remember Jin Taesun the way he remembered Seoul. He walked back into the family compound 6 weeks later, healed enough to stand tall, dressed in a suit that fit like armor. His uncle, director Jin Woo-young, didn't even blink when he saw him alive. Taesun. A thin smile. We thought you were gone. Clearly, Taesun said, someone was hoping I would be. Nothing more was said that day. Nothing needed to be. Both men understood the war had simply moved indoors. For 5 years, Taesun rebuilt, quietly, patiently, the way Tiana had once taught him to feed a pot of chili paste a little at a time instead of rushing the whole batch, the way she'd shown him that some things only come out right if you let them sit and wait. He replaced men loyal to his uncle one contract at a time. He tightened alliances. He waited. He never went back to the village, not because he'd forgotten her. He hadn't, not for a single day. Not the smell of fermenting chili paste, or the sound of her voice telling him he didn't have to be anybody in her kitchen, but because every version of going back put a target on her spine. His enemies were still watching, still waiting for him to slip, so he loved her the only way he could. From a distance, in silence, in the promise he'd made and hadn't broken, even if she had no way of knowing that. Then his grandfather died. The reading of the will detonated across the family like a bomb. Control of the Jin group, shipping, real estate, half the port authority of Busan would pass to Taesun and his lawful wife jointly upon marriage. Unmarried, the empire reverted to the family council. Woo-young's council. Taesun understood immediately what his uncle had understood for years. The fastest way to erase him wasn't a bullet in a ditch. It was patience. Wait for him to die alone, unmarried, and inherit everything by default. Which meant Taesun had one weapon his uncle didn't expect. He could get married. The council, thinking they'd cornered him, demanded he choose from Korea's most eligible women within the year, expecting him to fail, to stall, to hand them the excuse they needed. Instead, Taesun smiled for the first time in months. He had a banquet organized. The grandest wife selection event Seoul had seen in a decade. 100 of the country's most powerful, most beautiful women invited under the cameras of every major network. His assistant frowned over the guest list. Sir, none of Korea's most eligible women are on staff for catering. I know, Taesun said, straightening his cuffs in the mirror. That's not who I'm marrying. He'd spent 5 years rebuilding an empire. Tonight, in front of the entire country, he was going to spend it all on one woman who'd never asked him for a single thing. Somewhere across the ocean, in a kitchen that still smelled like fermenting clay and old family recipes, Tiana Caldwell had no idea her name was about to be spoken on national television. The grand hall of the Seoul Regency shimmered under $100,000 of lighting. 100 women waited in gowns worth more than most villages saw in a year. Actresses, a senator's daughter. Every camera in the country pointed at the stage, waiting for Jin Taesun to make his choice. He walked out in black, calm as still water, and let his eyes move slowly across the room. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Which one? The actress in red? The shipping heiress in the front row, already smiling like she'd already won? Taesun kept walking, past the red dress, past the heiress, past every practiced smile in the room toward the back, near the kitchen doors, where the catering staff stood in black aprons refilling trays no one had touched. The room went silent in pieces, section by section, as people realized where he was headed. There, hands stained faintly with old cooking oil, hair pulled back, a tray of empty glasses balanced on one arm, stood Tiana Caldwell. She hadn't even known this event was hers to worry about. She'd taken the catering job on a favor for a friend, needing the extra money, half a world from home and still cooking for other people's celebrations instead of her own. Taesun stopped in front of her. The room held its breath. Tiana, he said, and his voice cracked slightly on her name, 5 years compressed into 2 syllables. She stared at him, the suit, the confidence, the face she hadn't seen since a dirt road, and a promise she'd stopped believing somewhere around year 3. Her tray nearly slipped from her hands. He lowered himself to one knee. Gasps detonated through the hall. A senator's champagne glass shattered on the marble floor. I made you a promise, Taesun said, loud enough for the cameras, for the country, for the uncle he knew was watching from somewhere in that room. I said if you ever needed me, I would come. Tiana's eyes filled, hands shaking around the tray she still hadn't set down. I don't need saving, she whispered. I never did. I know. His eyes didn't leave hers. That's exactly why I'm asking. Tiana Caldwell, marry me. The wedding never happened quietly. Nothing about Jin Taesun's life ever did. Director Woo Young tried everything in the 6 weeks between the proposal and the ceremony. Lawyers leaked stories to the press calling Tiana a gold digger, a background investigation that turned up nothing because there was nothing to find. When none of it worked, he did what desperate men always did. He went after what she loved. 2 nights before the wedding, Tiana's phone rang at 3 a.m., her aunt's voice shaking. Tiana, the restaurant. Someone set the kitchen on fire. By the time she landed back home, it was mostly ash. The wooden shelves, the old photographs, all of it gone. But the clay jars, the anjai her grandmother had used to ferment gochujang for 40 years, had survived the flames, blackened but intact, exactly as clay always had. Woo Young himself arrived the next morning, flanked by 2 men, wearing the expression of someone finishing a job. He found Tiana standing in the wreckage, and one jar, the oldest one, the one her grandmother always called the first jar, still sealed in the corner. You should have stayed a waitress, he said. This could have ended so much simpler. Simpler for you, Tiana said. He raised a cane and brought it down on the old jar without warning. It shattered, clay and fermented chili paste spraying across the scorched floor. For a moment, nothing. Then something metal caught the light among the wreckage, a silver key, and beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth that had somehow survived both fire and time, a ledger. Her grandmother's handwriting, decades old, recording every batch, every recipe, every business arrangement she'd made with the Jin family when she first supplied the original restaurant that grew into their food empire, credit she'd never publicly received. And tucked in the back pages, newer ink, names, dates, wire transfers, the payment trail from 5 years ago, the order to have Jin Taesun killed. Signed in Woo Young's own hand in a moment of arrogance he'd long forgotten. Woo Young's face became the color of old ash. That's not, he started. It is, Taesun said from the doorway, flanked by security, having arrived exactly when it mattered most. You just handed us the proof yourself, Uncle, in front of witnesses. The wedding happened 3 weeks later than planned, smaller than the banquet, quieter than the scandal that followed it. Woo Young was gone by then. The council saw to that themselves, unwilling to be caught standing beside him when the ledger became public. At the reception, Taesun held Tiana's hands, still faintly stained, still calloused, still hers. Everyone wanted me when I had everything, he said quietly. You wanted me when I had nothing at all. Tiana smiled, tired and finally fully at peace. Your grandmother's recipes were never just food. They were proof, waiting in clay for someone to finally listen. Gold can be stolen, power can be taken, but clay remembers every hand that shaped it. Was it love that saved them both? Or was it the truth clay had been waiting 40 years to tell?